Bitcoin. Welcome to not a Bitcoin. Welcome to a Course in Miracles, YouTube class. That's funny. I was just looking at Bitcoin and what it's doing right now. So I have Bitcoin on my mind. Okay, so this is A Course in Miracles. This is Teaching for Truth, Chapter 14. So I'm going to read the introduction. It says, "Yes, you are blessed indeed. Yet in this world you do not know it, but you have the means for learning it and seeing it quite clearly. The Holy Spirit uses logic as easily and as well as does the ego, except that his conclusions are insane. They take a direction exactly opposite, pointing as clearly to heaven as the ego points to darkness and to death. We have followed much of the ego's logic and have seen its logical conclusions, and having seen them, we have realized that they cannot be seen except in illusions, for there alone their seeming clearness seems to be clearly seen. Let us now turn away from them and follow the simple logic by which the Holy Spirit teaches the simple conclusions that speak for truth and only truth." So this is section 1 out of chapter 14. It says, "The conditions of learning. If you are blessed and do not know it, you need to learn it must be so. The knowledge is not taught, but its conditions must be acquired, for it is they that have been thrown away. You can learn to bless and cannot give what you do not have. If then you offer blessing, it must have come first to yourself, and you must also have accepted it as yours, for how else could you give it away? That is why miracles offer you the testimony that you are blessed. If what you offer is complete forgiveness, you must have let guilt go, accepting the atonement for yourself and learning that you're guiltless." Right? That's what I named this class. Accept atonement and learn you are guiltless. How could you learn what has been done for you, unknown to you, unless you do what you would have to do if it had been done for you? Indirect proof of truth is needed in a world made of denial and without direction. You will perceive the need for this if you realize that to deny is the decision not to know. Right? I've had lots of people tell me, actually some of my good friends, they go, "Don't tell me anymore, I don't want to know." They don't want to know because they don't want to be responsible for that new knowledge, right? If they stay ignorant, they can keep on proceeding within their own dream. And I think it's it's comical in a way, it's tragic in another way, that you wouldn't want to hear the truth, that you wouldn't know the truth. The logic of the world must therefore lead to nothing, for its goal is nothing. If you decide to have and give and be nothing except a dream, you must direct your thoughts unto oblivion. Right? I actually also spoke to a friend and I said, what's it all for? What does this lead to? And he pretty much admitted, well, it just leads to death. That he's probably not going to get to the goal that he set for himself because he's going to run out of time. But then there's the caveat, well, I can leave it for my kids. And what usually happens with an inheritance once you pass, I mean, usually, not always, but I've heard many, many stories of a lot of conflict within the family and a lot of hard feelings based on, what's left, how to split it up. And if you have and give and are everything, all this has been denied. Your thought system is closed off and wholly separated from the truth. This is an insane world, and do not underestimate the extent of its insanity, right? There's another line in the Course that says, "Never underestimate the insanity of the ego." There is no area of your perception that it has not touched, and your dream is sacred to you. That is why God placed the Holy Spirit in you where you place the dream. So the Holy Spirit's my solution. Seeing is always outward. Where your thoughts wholly of you, the thought system you made, would be forever dark. The thoughts the mind of God's Son projects or extends have all the power that he gives to them. The thoughts he shares with God are beyond his belief, but those he made are his beliefs, right? What holds the world in chains but your beliefs? And it is these and not the truth that he has chosen to defend and love. They will not be taken from him, right? Because he can't save you from what God can't save you from what you made. And again, you're the author of fear. That's why you have to deal with it. But they can be given up by him, for the source of their undoing is in him. There is nothing in the world to teach him that the logic of the world is totally insane and leads to nothing. Yet in him who made this insane logic, there is one who knows it leads to nothing, for he knows everything. Any direction that would lead you where the Holy Spirit leads you not goes nowhere. Anything you deny that he knows to be true, you have denied yourself, and he must therefore teach you not to deny it. Here it is. Undoing is indirect as doing is. You were created only to create, neither to see nor do. These are but the indirect expressions of the will to live, which has been blocked by the capricious and unholy whim of death and murder that your Father does not share with you. You have set yourself the task of sharing what cannot be shared. And while you think it's possible to learn to do this, you will not believe all that is possible to learn to do. The Holy Spirit, therefore, must begin his teaching by showing you what you can never learn. His message is not indirect, but he must introduce the simple truth into a thought system which has become so twisted and so complex, you cannot see that it means nothing, right? Complexities of the ego. He merely looks at its foundation and dismisses it. Why? Because it's built on a false premise. But you cannot undo what you have made, nor escape the heavy burden of its dullness that lies upon your mind. You cannot see through it. It deceives you because you chose to deceive yourself. Those who choose to be deceived are merely attacking direct approaches because they seem to encroach upon deception and strike at it. Next section 2, the happy learner. The Holy Spirit needs a happy learner in whom his mission can be happily accomplished. You, who are steadfastly devoted to misery, must first recognize that you are miserable and not happy. The Holy Spirit cannot teach without this contrast, for you believe that misery is happiness. This has so confused you that you have undertaken to learn to do what you could never do, believing that unless you learn it, you will not be happy. You do not realize that this foundation on this most peculiar learning goal depends means absolutely nothing. It may still make sense to you. Have faith in nothing and you will find the treasure that you seek, right? Have faith in nothing and you will find the treasure that you seek. Yet you will add another burden to your already burdened mind. You will believe that nothing is of value and will value it. A little piece of glass, a speck of dust, a body or a war are one to you. For if you value one thing made of nothing, you have believed that nothing can be precious and that you can learn how to make the untrue true. The Holy Spirit, seeing where you are, but knowing you are elsewhere, begins his lesson in simplicity with the fundamental teaching that truth is true. Now listen to this. This is the hardest lesson you will ever learn, and in the end, the only one. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. Consider all the distortions you've made of nothing, all the strange forms and feelings and actions and reactions that you've woven out of it. Nothing is so alien to you as the simple truth, and nothing are you less inclined to listen to. The contrast between that is true and what is not, the contrast between what is true and what is not is perfectly apparent, yet you do not see it. Right? If you talk to somebody, you'll go, well, you can't be sure of anything. The simple and the obvious are not apparent to those who would make palaces and royal robes of nothing, believing they are kings with golden crowns because of them. All this the Holy Spirit sees and teaches, and simply that all this is not true. To those unhappy learners who would teach themselves nothing and delude themselves into believing that it is not nothing, the Holy Spirit says with steadfast quietness, the truth is true, nothing else matters, nothing else is real, and everything beside it is not there. Let me make the one distinction for you that you cannot make. but need to learn. Your faith in nothing is deceiving you. Offer your faith to me, and I will place it gently in the holy place where it belongs. You will find no deception there, but only the simple truth, and you will love it because you will understand it. Like you, the Holy Spirit did not make truth. Like God, he knows it to be true. He brings the light of truth into the darkness and lets it shine on you. And as it shines, your brothers see it, and realizing thus that this light is not what you have made, they see in you more than you see. They will be happy learners of the lesson this light brings to them, because it teaches them release from nothing and from all the works of nothing. I think it's funny how it keeps saying nothing. That's what the world is. The heavy chains that seem to bind them to despair, they do not see as nothing until you bring the light to them. And then they see the chains have disappeared, and so they must have been nothing. And you will see it with them, because you taught them gladness and release. They will become your teachers in release and gladness. When you teach anyone that truth is true, you learn it with him. And so you learn that what seemed hardest was the easiest. Learn to be a happy learner. You will never learn how to make nothing everything. Yet see that this has been your goal and recognize how foolish it has been. Be glad it is undone, for when you look at it in simple honesty, it is undone. I said before, be not content with nothing. For you have believed that nothing could content you. It is not so. If you would be a happy learner, you must give everything you've learned to the Holy Spirit to be unlearned for you. Did you hear that? If you would be a happy learner, you must give everything you have learned to the Holy Spirit to be unlearned for you. That's the purification, isn't it? Purification is necessary, but you can't be in charge of your own purification. That's the job of the Holy Spirit. And then begin to learn the joyous lessons that come quickly on the firm foundation that truth is true. For what is builded there is true and built on truth. The universe of learning will open up before you in all its gracious simplicity. With truth before you, you will not look back. The happy learner meets the conditions of learning here as he meets the conditions of knowledge in the kingdom. All this lies in the Holy Spirit's plan to free you from the past and open up the way to freedom for you. For truth is true. Isn't that amazing? We don't want to gloss over that, where it says all this lies in the Holy Spirit's plan to free you from the past. When I do the mind training, lesson 7 says I see only the past. And all the first 6 lessons depend on learning the 7th lesson. What else could you ever be or ever was? This simple lesson holds the key to the dark door that you believe is locked forever. You made the door of nothing, and behind it is nothing. The key is the only light that shines away the shapes and forms and fears of nothing. Accept this key to freedom from the hands of Christ, who gives it to you, that you may join him in the holy task of bringing light. For like your brothers, you do not realize that light has come and freed you from the sleep of darkness. Behold your brothers in their freedom, and learn of them how to be free of darkness. The light in you will waken them, and they will not leave you asleep. The vision of Christ is given the very instant that it is perceived. Where everything is clear, it is all holy. The quietness of its simplicity is so compelling that you will realize it's impossible to deny the simple truth, for there is nothing else. God is everywhere, and his Son is in him with everything. Can he sing the dirge of sorrow when this is true? The decision for guiltlessness. The happy learner cannot feel guilty about learning. This is so essential to learning that it should never be forgotten. The guiltless learner learns easily because his thoughts are free. Yet this entails the recognition that guilt is interference, not salvation, and serves no useful function at all. Perhaps you're accustomed to using guiltlessness merely to offset the pain of guilt and do not look upon it as having value in itself. You believe that guilt and guiltlessness are both of value, each representing escape from what the other does not offer. You do not want either alone, For without both, you do not see yourself as whole and therefore happy. Yet you are whole only in your guiltlessness. And only in your guiltlessness can you be happy. There's no conflict here. To wish for guilt in any way, any form, will lose appreciation of the value of your guiltlessness and push it from your sight. There is no compromise that you can make with guilt and escape the pain that only guiltlessness allies. Learning is living here as creating is being in heaven. Whenever the pain of guilt seems to attract you, remember that if you yield to it, you're deciding against your happiness and will not learn how to be happy. Say therefore to yourself gently, but with the conviction born of the love of God and of his Son, what I experience, I will make manifest. If I am guiltless, I have nothing to fear. I choose to testify to my acceptance of the atonement, not its rejection. I would accept my guiltlessness by making it manifest and sharing it. Let me bring peace to God's Son from his Father. Each day, each hour, and minute, even second, you are deciding between the crucifixion and the resurrection, between the ego and the Holy Spirit. The ego is the choice for guilt. The Holy Spirit is the choice, is the choice for guiltlessness. The power of decision is all that is yours. What you can decide between is fixed. What you can decide between is fixed because there are no alternatives except truth and illusion. Do you see it? There's no, let me have a drink of water here. Sometimes I read and I get shorter breath. So this is very important, so I'm going to read it again. What you can decide between is fixed because there's no alternatives except truth and illusion. Right? It makes it pretty clear. I was talking to a brother the other day and he says, well, there's no fence. I said, yeah, there's no fence to sit on. But you can't make illusion true and then correct it. It's not true at all. The truth and illusion is antithetical, but they're fixed. They're two fixed things that you can choose between, but they don't have anything to do with each other. And there is no overlap between them because they're opposites, which cannot be reconciled and cannot both be true. You are guilty or guiltless, bound or free, unhappy or happy, right? It doesn't depend on what's going on out there. What's going on out there is what the illusion is. What you see with the body's eyes is what the illusion is. The miracle teaches you that you have chosen guiltlessness, freedom, and joy. It is not a cause, but an effect. It is the natural result of choosing right, attesting to your happiness that comes from choosing to be free of guilt. Everyone you offer healing to returns it. Everyone you attack keeps it and cherishes it by holding it against you. Whether he does this or does it not will make no difference. You will think he does. And that's what matters, what you think in your mind, because then it becomes true for you. It is impossible to offer what you do not want without this penalty. The cost of giving is receiving. Either it is a penalty from which you suffer or the happy purchase of a treasure to hold dear. No penalty is ever asked of God's Son except by himself and of himself. Every chance given him to heal is another opportunity to replace darkness with light and fear with love. If he refuses it, he binds himself to darkness because he did not choose to free his brother and enter the light with him. By giving power to nothing, he throws away the joyous opportunity to learn that nothing has no power. And by not dispelling darkness, he became afraid of darkness and of light. The joy of learning that darkness has no power over the Son of God is the happy lesson the Holy Spirit teaches and would have you teach with him. It is his joy to teach it as it will be yours. The way to teach this simple lesson is merely this: guiltlessness is invulnerability. Guiltlessness is invulnerability. Therefore, make your invulnerability manifest to everyone. Teach him that whatever he may try to do to you, your perfect freedom from the belief that you can be harmed shows him that he is guiltless. He can do nothing that can hurt you, and by refusing to allow him to think he can, you teach him that the atonement which you have accepted for yourself, is also his. There's nothing to forgive. No one can hurt the Son of God. His guilt is wholly without cause, and being without cause cannot exist. God is the only cause, and guilt is not of him. Teach no one he has hurt you, for if you do, you teach yourself that what is not of God has power over you. The causeless cannot be. Do not attest to it, and do not foster belief in it in any mind. Remember always, the mind is one and cause is one. You will learn communication with this oneness only when you learn to deny the causeless and accept the cause of God as yours. The power that God has given to his Son is his, and nothing else can his Son see or choose to look upon without imposing on himself the penalty of guilt in place of all the happy teaching the Holy Spirit would gladly offer him. Whenever you choose to make a decision for yourself, you're thinking destructively, and the decision will be wrong. If it will hurt you because of the concept of decision that led to it, it is not true that you can make decisions by yourself for yourself alone. No thought of God's Son can be separate or isolated in its effects. Every decision is made for the whole sonship, directed in and out, influencing a constellation larger than anything that you dreamed of. Right? That's why it says everything you think, say, or do teaches all the universe. But your worth isn't established by what you think, say, or do, or by your teaching or your learning. Your worth was established by God. And what the Holy Spirit's trying to teach you, and that's what this message is, that's the good news. That's the gospel. What? That you're not guilty. That your guiltlessness is guaranteed by God. That you have nothing to fear. God isn't going to punish you, and it's not going to make you a martyr. And there is a God, and he is your creator, and he loves you totally. Love created you like itself. Those who accept the atonement are invulnerable, but those who believe they are guilty will respond to guilt because they think it's salvation and will refuse to see it and side with it. They believe that increasing guilt is self-protection. It's not. And they fail to understand the simple fact that what they do not want must hurt them. All this arises because they do not believe that what they want is good. Yet will was given them because it is holy and will bring to them all that they need, coming as naturally as peace that knows no limits. There is nothing their will fails to provide that offers them anything of value. Yet because they do not understand their will, the Holy Spirit quietly understands it for them and gives them what they want without effort, strain, or the impossible burden of deciding what they want and need alone, right? No single instant do I know what makes me happy. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, right? I turn my life and will over to the care of God, right? Because he does care for me. It will never happen that you must make decisions for yourself. You're not bereft of help, and help that knows the answer. Would you be content with little, which is all that you alone can offer yourself, when he who gives you everything will simply offer it to you? He will never ask what you have done to make you worthy of the gift of God. Ask it not therefore of yourself. Instead, accept his answer, for he knows that you're worthy of everything God wills for you. What's God's will for you? Perfect happiness without opposite. Do not try to escape the gift of God. He so freely and so gladly offers you. He offers you but what God gave him for you. You need not decide whether or not you're deserving of it. God knows you are. Would you deny the truth of God's decision and place your pitiful appraisal of yourself in place of his calm and unswerving value of his Son? So just be wrong. Be wrong about what you thought about yourself or what you think about yourself. All your definitions fall way short. Nothing can shake God's conviction of the perfect purity of everything that he created, for it is wholly pure. Do not decide against it, for being of him it must be true. Peace abides in every mind that quietly accepts the plan set for its atonement, relinquishing its own. You know not of salvation, for you do not understand it. Make no decisions about what it is or where it lies, but ask the Holy Spirit everything, and leave all decisions to his gentle counsel. The one who knows the plan of God that God would have you follow can teach you what it is. Only his wisdom is capable of guiding you to follow it. Every decision you undertake alone but signifies that you would define what salvation is and what you would be saved from. The Holy Spirit knows that all salvation is escape from guilt. You have no other enemy against this strange distortion of purity of the Son of God. The Holy Spirit is your only friend. He is the strong protector of the innocence that sets you free, and it is his decision to do everything that would obscure your innocence from your clouded mind. Let him therefore be the only guide that you would follow to salvation. He knows the way and leads you gladly on it. With him, you will not fail to learn that what God wills for you is your will. Without his guidance, you will think you know alone and will decide against your peace as surely as you decided that salvation lay in you alone. Salvation is of him to whom God gave it for you. He has not forgotten it. Forget him not, and he will make every decision for you, for your salvation and the peace of God in you. Seek not to appraise the worth of God's Son, whom he created holy, for to do so is to evaluate his Father and judge against him. And you will feel guilty for this imagined crime, which no one in this world or heaven could possibly commit. The Holy Spirit teaches only that the sin of self-replacement on the throne of God is not a source of guilt. What cannot happen can have no effects to fear. Be quiet in your faith in him who loves you and would lead you out of insanity. Madness may be your choice, but not your reality. Never forget the love of God who has remembered you. For it is quite impossible that he could ever let his Son drop from the loving mind wherein he was created and where his abode was fixed in perfect peace forever. Say to the Holy Spirit only, decide for me, and it is done. Say to the Holy Spirit only, decide for me. And you can practice every time a decision comes up. Go, Holy Spirit, what should I do? I mean, it sounds silly, but why not? For his decisions are reflections of what God knows about you, and in this light, error of any kind becomes impossible. Why would you struggle so frantically to anticipate all you cannot know, when all knowledge lies behind every decision the Holy Spirit makes for you? Learn of his wisdom and his love, and teach his answer to everyone who struggles in the dark. For you decide for them and for yourself. How gracious it is to decide all things through him whose equal love is given to equally all alike. He leaves you no one outside you, and so he gives you what is yours, because your Father would have you share it with him. And everything be led by him, and do not reconsider. Trust him to answer quickly, surely, and with the love for everyone who will be touched in any way by the decision, and everyone will be. Would you take unto yourself the sole responsibility for deciding what can bring only good to everyone? Would you know this? You taught yourself the most unnatural habit of not communicating with your Creator, yet you remain in close communication with him and with everything that is within him, as it is within yourself. Unlearn isolation through his loving guidance, and learn of all the happy communication that you've thrown away but could not lose. Whenever you're in doubt what you should do, think of his presence in you and tell yourself this and only this: he leadeth me and knows the way which I know not. Yet he will never keep from me what he would have me learn. And so I trust him to communicate to me all that he knows for me. Then let him teach you quietly to perceive your guiltlessness, which is already there, right? This is like I think it's one of the first characteristics of a teacher of God is trust, right? You have to put your trust and faith in the Holy Spirit and relax and decide not to decide. And if the decision seems to come your way, then ask the Holy Spirit if it's not clear what you should do. Your function in the atonement: when you accept a brother's guiltlessness, you will see the atonement in him. For by proclaiming it in him, you make it yours, and you will see what you sought. You will not see the symbol of your brother's guiltlessness shining within him while you still believe it's not there. His guiltlessness is your atonement, right? So my sole responsibility is to accept atonement. But there's a condition for that. His guiltlessness is your atonement. So I have to accept atonement every moment by not seeing my brother as guilty, affirming his guiltlessness. Grant it to him, and you will see the truth of what you have acknowledged. Yet truth is offered first to be received, as God gave it first to his Son. The first in time means nothing, but the first in eternity is God the Father, who is both first and one. Beyond the first there is no order, for there is no order, no second or third, nothing but the first. You who belong to the first cause created by him, like unto himself and part of him, are more than merely guiltless. The state of guiltlessness is only the condition in which what is not there has been removed from the disordered mind that thought it was. This state and only this must you attain, with God beside you, for until you do, you will still think that you're separate from him. You can perhaps feel his presence next to you, but cannot know that you're one with him. This cannot be taught. Learning applies only to the condition in which it happens of itself. When you have let all that has obscured the truth in your most holy mind be undone for you, and therefore stand in grace before your Father, he will give himself to you as he has always done. Giving himself is all he knows, and so it is all knowledge. For what he knows not cannot be, and therefore cannot be given. Ask not to be forgiven, for that has already been accomplished. Ask rather to learn how to forgive and to restore what always was to your unforgiving mind. Atonement becomes real and visible to those who use it. On earth, this is your only function. And you must learn that it is all you want to learn. You will feel guilty till you learn this, for in the end, whatever form it takes, your guilt arises from your failure to fulfill your function in God's mind with all of yours. Can you escape this guilt by failing to fulfill your function here? So what did he say? Ask not to be forgiven, for that's already been accomplished. Ask rather to learn how to forgive and restore what always was to your unforgiving mind, right? So he's saying that you have an unforgiving mind, that you're unmerciful, but he's saying that you can learn how to forgive, right? How do you do that? You learn how to forgive by seeing your brother as guiltless. That's the atonement. You need not understand creation to do what must be done before that knowledge would be meaningful to you. God breaks no barriers, neither did he make them. When you release them, they're gone. God will not fail, nor ever has in anything. Decide that God is right and you are wrong about yourself. He created you out of himself, but still within him. He knows what you are. Remember that there is no second to him. There cannot. Therefore, it says be anyone without his holiness. I think that's a typo. Be anyone without his holiness, nor anyone unworthy of his perfect love. Fail not in your function of loving in a loveless place made out of darkness and deceit, for thus are darkness and deceit undone. Fail not yourself, but instead offer to God and you his blameless Son. For this small gift of appreciation for his love, God will himself exchange your gift for his. Amazing. Fail not in your function of loving in a loveless place made out of darkness and deceit, for thus our darkness and deceit are undone by your love, an action of your mind. Before you make any decision for yourself, remember that you've decided against your function in heaven, and then consider carefully whether you want to make decisions here. Your function here is only to decide against deciding what you want and recognition that you do not know. How then can you decide what you should do? Leave all decisions to the one who speaks for God and for your function as he knows it. So will he teach you to remove the awful burden you've laid upon yourself by loving not the Son of God and trying to teach him guilt instead of love. Give up this frantic and insane attempt that cheats you out of the joy of living with your God and Father and of walking gladly to his love and holiness that join together as the truth in you, making you one with him. When you have learned how to decide with God, all decisions become as easy and as right as breathing. There is no effort, and you will be led as gently as if you were being carried down a quiet path in summer. Only your own volition seems to make deciding hard. The Holy Spirit will not delay in answering your every question what to do. He knows, and he will tell you, and then do it for you. You who are tired will find this more restful than sleep, for you can bring your guilt into sleeping, but not into this. Unless you are guiltless, you cannot know God, whose will is that you know him. Therefore, you must be guiltless. Yet if you do not accept the necessary conditions for knowing him, you have denied him and do not recognize him, though he is all around you. He cannot be known without his Son, whose guiltlessness is the condition for knowing him. Accepting his Son as guilty is denial of the Father, so complete that knowledge is swept away from recognition in the very mind where God himself has placed it. If you would but listen and learn how impossible this is, do not endow him with attributes you understand. You made him not, and anything you understand is not of him. Your task is not to make reality. It is here without your making, but not without you. You have tried to throw yourself away and valued God so little. You who have tried to throw yourself away and valued God so little, hear me speak for him and for yourself. You cannot understand how much your Father loves you, for there's no parallel in your experience of the world to help you understand it. There is nothing on earth with which it can compare, and nothing you've ever felt apart from him resembles it ever so faintly. You cannot even give a blessing in perfect gentleness. You cannot even give a blessing in perfect gentleness. Would you know of one who gives forever, and who knows of nothing except giving? The children of heaven lie in the light of the blessing of their Father because they know that they are sinless. The atonement was established as the means for restoring guiltlessness to minds that have denied it and thus denied heaven to themselves. Atonement teaches you the true condition of the Son of God. It does not teach you what you are or what your Father is. The Holy Spirit, who remembers this for you, merely teaches you how to remove the blocks that stand between you and what you know. His memory is yours. If you remember what you have made, you are remembering nothing. Remembrance of reality is in him and therefore in you. The guiltless and the guilty are totally incapable of understanding one another. Each perceives the other as like himself, making both unable to communicate because each sees the other unlike the way he sees himself. God can communicate only to the Holy Spirit in your mind because only he shares the knowledge of what you are with God, and only the Holy Spirit can answer God for you, for only he knows what God is. Everything else that you've placed within your mind cannot exist, for what is not in communication with the mind of God has never been. Communication with God is life. Nothing without it is at all. The Circle of the Atonement, Section 5. The only part of your mind that has reality is the part that links you still with God. Would you have all of it transformed into a radiant message of God's love to share with all the lonely ones who have denied him? God makes this possible. Would you deny his yearning to be known? You yearn for him as he for you. This is forever changeless. Accept then the immutable. Leave the world of death behind and return quietly to heaven. There is nothing of value here and everything of value there. Listen to the Holy Spirit and to God through him. He speaks for you, to you. There is no guilt in you, for God is blessed in his Son, and his Son is blessed in him. Everyone has a special part to play in the atonement, but the message given to each one is always the same. God's Son is guiltless. Each one teaches the message differently and learns it differently. Yet until he teaches it and learns it, he will suffer the pain of dim awareness that his true foundation remains unfulfilled in him. The burden of guilt is heavy, but God would not have you bound by it. His plan for your awaking is as perfect as yours is fallible. You know not what you do, but he who knows is with you. His gentleness is yours, and all the love you share with God, he holds in trust for you. He would teach you nothing except how to be happy. Blessed Son of Holy Blessing Father, joy was created for you. Who can condemn whom God has blessed? There's nothing in the mind of God that does not share his shining innocence. Creation is a natural extension of perfect purity. Your only calling here is to devote yourself with active willingness to the denial of guilt in all its forms. To accuse is not to understand. Listen to this. To accuse is not to understand. The happy learners of the atonement become the teachers of the innocent. That is the right of all that God created. Deny them not what is their due, for you will not withhold it from them alone. The inheritance of the kingdom is the right of God's Son, given him in his creation. Do not try to steal it from him, or you will ask for guilt and will experience. Protect his purity with every thought that would steal it away and keep it from his sight. Bring innocence to light and answer to the call of the atonement. Never allow purity to remain hidden, but shine away the heavy veils of guilt within which the Son of God has hidden himself from his own sight. We are all joined in the atonement here, and nothing can unite us, and nothing else can unite us in this world. So will the world of separation slip away and full communication be restored between Father and the Son. The miracle acknowledges the guiltlessness that must have been denied to produce the need of healing. Do not withhold this glad acknowledgement, for hope of happiness and release from suffering of every kind lie in it. Who is there but wishes to be free of pain? He may not yet have learned how to exchange guilt for innocence, nor realize that only in this exchange can freedom of pain be his. Yet those who have failed to learn need teaching, not attack. To attack those who have need of teaching is to fail to learn from them. Teachers of innocence, each in his own way, have joined together, taking their part in the unified curriculum of the atonement. There is no unity of learning goals apart from this. There is no conflict in this curriculum, which has one aim, however it is taught. Each effort made on its behalf is offered for the single purpose of the release from guilt, to the eternal glory of God and his creation. And every teaching that points to this points straight to heaven and the peace of God. There is no pain, no trial, no fear that teaching this can fail to overcome. The power of God himself supports this teaching and guarantees its limitless results. Join your own efforts to the power that cannot fail and must result in peace. No one can be untouched by teaching such as this. You will not see yourself beyond the power of God if you teach only this. Well, you will not see yourself beyond the power of God if you teach only this. You will not be exempt from the effects of this most holy lesson, which seeks but to restore what is the right of God's creation. From everyone whom you accord release from guilt, you will inevitably learn your innocence. The circle of atonement has no end, and you will find ever increasing confidence in your safe inclusion in the circle with everyone you bring within its safety and in its perfect peace. Peace then be unto everyone who becomes a teacher of peace. For peace is the acknowledgement of perfect purity from which no one is excluded. Wow, there it is. For peace is the acknowledgement of perfect purity from which no one is excluded. Within its holy circle is everyone whom God created as his Son. Joy is its unifying attribute, with no one left outside to suffer guilt alone. The power of God draws everyone to its safe embrace of love and union. Stand quietly within this circle and attract all tortured minds to join with you in the safety of its peace and holiness. Abide with me within it as a teacher of atonement, not of guilt. Blessed are you who teach with me. Our power comes not of us, but of our Father. In guiltlessness we know him as he knows us guiltless. I stand within the circle, calling you to peace. Teach peace with me and stand with me on holy ground. Remember for everyone your Father's power that he has given him. Believe not that you cannot teach his perfect peace. Stand not outside, but join me within. Fail not the only purpose of which my teaching calls you. Restore to God his Son as he created him by teaching him his innocence. The crucifixion has no part in the atonement, only the resurrection became my part in it. That is the symbol of the release from guilt by guiltlessness. Whom you perceive as guilty, you would crucify. Yet you restore guiltlessness to whoever you see as guiltless. Crucifixion is always the ego's aim. It sees everyone as guilty, and by its condemnation it would kill. The Holy Spirit sees only guiltlessness, and in his gentleness he will release from fear and reestablish the reign of love. The power of love is in his gentleness, which is of God, and therefore cannot crucify nor suffer crucifixion. The temple you restore becomes your altar, for it was rebuilt through you, and everything you give to God is yours. Thus he creates, and thus must you restore. Each one you see, you place within the holy circle of atonement or leave outside, judging him fit for crucifixion or for redemption. If you bring him into the circle of purity, you'll rest there with him. If you leave him without, you join him there. Judge not except in quietness, which is not of you. Refuse to accept anyone as without the blessing of atonement, and bring him into it by blessing him. Holiness must be shared, for therein lies everything that makes it holy. Come gladly to the holy circle and look out in peace on all who think they are outside. Cast no one out, for here is what he seeks along with you. Come, let us join him in the holy place of peace, which is for all of us, united as one within the cause of peace. The light of communication. The journey that we undertake together is the exchange of dark for light, of ignorance for understanding. Nothing you understand is fearful. It is only in darkness and in ignorance that you perceive the frightening and shrink away from it into further darkness. And yet it is only hidden. It is only the hidden that can terrify, not for what is, but for its hiddenness. The obscure is frightening because you do not understand its meaning. If you did, it would be clear. You would be no longer in the dark. Nothing has hidden value, for what is hidden cannot be shared, and so its value is unknown. The hidden is kept apart, but value always lies in joint appreciation. What is concealed cannot be loved, so it must be feared. The quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness in which nothing is hidden and therefore nothing is fearful. Attack will always yield to love if it's brought to love, not hidden from it. There is no darkness that the light of love will not dispel unless it is concealed from love's beneficence. What is kept apart from love cannot share its healing power because it has been separated off and kept in darkness. The sentinels of darkness watch over it carefully, and you who made these guardians of illusions out of nothing are afraid of them. Would you continue to give imagined power to those strange ideas of safety? They're neither safe nor unsafe. They do not protect, neither do they attack. They do nothing at all, being nothing at all. As guardians of darkness and of ignorance, look to them only for fear, for what they keep obscure is fearful. But let them go, and what was fearful will be so no longer. Without protection of obscurity, only the light of love remains. For only this has meaning and can live in light. Everything else must disappear. Death yields to light simply because destruction is not true. The light of guiltlessness shines guilt away because when they're brought together, the truth of one must make the falsity of its opposite perfectly clear. Keep not guilt and guiltlessness apart, for your belief that you can have both is meaningless. All you have done by keeping them apart is lose their meaning by confusing them with each other. And so you do not realize that the only one means anything. The other is wholly without sense of any kind. You have regarded the separation as a means for breaking your communication with your Father. The Holy Spirit reinterprets it as a means of reestablishing what was not broken, but has been made obscure. All things you made have use to him for his most holy purpose. He knows you're not separate from God, but he perceives much in your mind that lets you think you are. All this and nothing else would he separate from you. The power of decision, which you made in place of the power of creation, he would teach you how to use on your behalf. You who made it to crucify yourself must learn of him how to apply it to the holy cause of restoration. You who speak in dark and devious symbols do not understand the language you have made. It has no meaning, for its purpose is not communication, but rather the disruption of communication. If the purpose of language is communication, how can this tongue mean anything? Yet even this strange and twisted effort to communicate through not communicating holds enough of love to make it meaningful if its interpreter is not its maker. You who made it are but expressing conflict from which the Holy Spirit would release you. Leave what you would communicate to him. He will interpret it to you with perfect clarity, for he knows with whom you are in perfect communication. You know not what you say, and so you know not what it is said to you. Yet your interpreter perceives the meaning in your alien language. He will not attempt to communicate the meaningless, but he will separate all that has meaning, dropping off the rest, and offering your true communication to those who would communicate as truly with you. You speak two languages at once, and thus must lead to unintelligibility. Yet if one remains nothing and the other everything, only that one is possible for purposes of communication. The other but interferes with it. The Holy Spirit's function is entirely communication. He therefore must remove whatever interferes with communication in order to restore it. Therefore, keep no source of interference from his sight, for he will not attack your sentinels, but bring them to him. And let his gentleness teach you that in the light they are not fearful and cannot serve to guard the dark doors behind which nothing at all is carefully concealed. We must open all doors and let the light come streaming through. There are no hidden chambers in God's temple. Its gates are open wide to greet his Son. No one can fail to come where God has called him, if he close not the door himself upon his Father's welcome, right? That's why it says over and over, like, this is an invitation to your Father. So I'm going to stop reading there because, I don't know, I must be getting tired. I'm tripping over my words again. So, yeah, it's Friday. Thank you for joining me. And we will continue reading chapter 7. I don't know if you, I haven't really put this out there, so maybe I'm just talking to myself. But I'm going to continue to do this until I'm done with the text. So we're getting close to being almost halfway through. So I will see you tomorrow sometime on Saturday, and we'll keep going. Thank you for joining me.